At Thanksgiving, my sister discovered I had $12 million, and my family insisted I give it to her, saying she deserved it more. Hello everyone, before we start today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing popularity, and subscribing is one of the most effective ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and allows us to keep bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel developing together. Thank you very much. Now let us begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain details changed to maintain identity. So my name is Sarah, I'm 38, female, and I need to get this off my chest. Do you know those family dynamics in which one child does nothing wrong, and the other appears to be invisible? Yes, welcome to my life. Until I was 8, everything was typical. I was an only child, and while my parents were not very affectionate, they were present. Mom would help me with my studies, while Dad would occasionally take me fishing on Lake St. Clair. We weren't the Brady Bunch, but we were okay. Then came a night that changed everything. I recall my Aunt Kelly arriving at 2 a.m. and instructed me to prepare a suitcase because Mom was in the hospital. My sister Rachel was on her way, but something was wrong. She wasn't supposed to arrive for another 2 months. The following few weeks were filled with hospital visits and quiet conversations. Rachel was really small. She resembled one of my baby dolls, but with all the tubes and cords. I was not permitted to touch her or get too close. That was the first time I sensed an invisible barrier building between myself and the rest of my family. When they finally brought Rachel home, our house transformed into a sanitized bubble. Mom was obsessed with germs. I'm talking about industrial-strength disinfection throughout, hand sanitizer stations in each room, and continuous cleaning. The unpleasant odor of bleach still bothers me to this day. But here's what really messed me up. If I showed the smallest sign of illness, I was whisked away to either Grandma Marie's or Aunt Kelly's home. I mean, every time. Sneeze once? Pack your bags. A slight cough? You're going to see Grandma. At first I found it enjoyable. Grandma Marie would bake cookies, and Aunt Kelly had a beautiful collection of Nancy Drew books that I was working my way through. But kids aren't stupid. After a while you start to realize what's going on. You are not being sent on adventures. You are being treated as a threat. As if your entire life could harm your darling sister. I tried everything to get their attention in a healthy way. Seriously, everything. Got all A's? Mom would barely look up from Rachel's most recent doctor's appointment schedule. Won first place in the scientific fair with a project about renewable energy. Dad just asked if I could keep the display board in the garage because Rachel is allergic to cardboard dust. Is this actually a thing? The real kicker came when I was 12. For months I'd been studying for the school talent show, teaching myself to play Bridge Over Troubled Water on piano. I understand it's a little too blatant. Rachel developed a fever of 99.1 degrees Fahrenheit on the night of the show. Guess who didn't have anyone in the audience? Meanwhile, 2 weeks later, Rachel's entire family, including both sets of grandparents, watched her 15-minute flute recital, during which she nailed hot cross buns. Rachel quickly learned how to operate the system. By the age of 7 she had outgrown any serious health issues, but that did not prevent her from performing. Headache? Must stay home from school. Feeling tired? Someone else, guess who, should complete her chores. Worried about a test? Mom would literally contact the school to have the deadline extended. I started spending more and more time in my room, reading books about art history and antiques. It's funny how things work out sometimes. My room became my haven. Mostly because Rachel claimed she was allergic to my lavender air freshener, and it was the only place she wouldn't go. Do you know what's really wrong? When she feigned to be sick, I felt grateful. At the absolute least, I'd be taken to Grandma Marie's, where someone would inquire about my day or express an interest in what I was up to. Grandma was the person who ignited my interest in old jewelry. She had an outstanding costume collection, which she allowed me to organize and categorize. I suppose I should have interpreted that as a prophecy. The worst part was not even the obvious bias. It was how they rewrote history to justify their behavior. Rachel just needs more attention because she had such a rough start. Sarah's always been so independent. Sarah understands that her sister has special needs. I did not understand. I was a child who couldn't see why having a strong immune system made me less deserving of love. Looking back, I realize how these years shaped me. The continual message that I was somehow unsafe or inconvenient to be around does not simply disappear. But, well, at least it taught me how to be self-sufficient. When no one checks your homework or cares about your accomplishments, you quickly learn to be your own motivator. High school. The majority of individuals either loved or disliked it. Me, I saw it as a ticket out. While Rachel was building her acting empire in middle school, I was preparing for my own departure. And let me tell you, nothing motivates you more than the realization that no one will do it for you. Remember how I said I spent hours organizing Grandma Marie's jewelry collection? That taught me a crucial lesson: the need for systematic organization and attention to detail. In high school, I viewed everything from the same standpoint. My workstation at home looked like something out of an organization magazine. Color-coded notes, perfectly planned study schedules, and everything had its place. Rachel mocked me about it by calling me Rain Man. Very good, sis. But here's the thing about being invisible. No one notices your failures or triumphs. So do whatever you want. I joined every club that didn't conflict with my part-time job at Carson's Diner. Thank you, Carol, the owner, for remembering my birthday when my parents had forgotten. Debate team? Check. Who is the National Honor Society's president? Check. Who is the editor-in-chief of the school paper? Check. The debate team was when I truly discovered my voice. There's something rather satisfying in shattering someone's argument while remaining calm. It also taught me how to negotiate, something I hadn't realized at the time but would come in handy later. I've won states twice. Rachel had significant soccer games, so my parents were unable to attend both events. She was on the C team. Didn't even play. The game changer. The junior year was when things really became interesting. I took the SAT and got perfect scores. Not, oh, pretty good, perfect. I mean, perfect. 1,600. You know how many people get it? Less than 1%. I remember staring at the results screen for about 20 minutes, thinking there was a mistake. I rushed home to inform my parents. I know this is foolish. Mom was in the kitchen, helping Rachel with her English homework. The conversation went something like this. My reaction was, "Mom? Look, I got a perfect SAT score." "Mommy. That's nice, honey, but can you keep it down?" Rachel's trying to concentrate. She has a big test tomorrow. "Rachel, you are right. Yeah, some of us actually have to study, Miss Perfect," she responded. "Rachel, sweetie, don't stress. You're just a different kind of learner. I still have a copy of those SAT results somewhere. Never got pinned to the refrigerator. But Rachel's C+ in English? That infant got prime refrigerator real estate. Complete with a, 'We're so proud of you,' magnet." College applications. The college admission process was interesting. I applied to 15 schools without telling anyone. I wrote all of my own essays, obtained my own recommendations, and completed all of the financial aid paperwork myself. My guiding advisor, Mr. Chen, was the actual MVP. My parents were too busy to help me with the FAFSA, so I stayed late after school. Then acceptance letters began to appear. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan. And each one has a scholarship offer. I kept them all in a locked box under my bed, knowing what would happen if Rachel found them. They had immediately focused their attention totally to her. But if Sarah goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone. Or anything ridiculous like that. Rachel joined JV cheering the same day I received my full ride offer from UMich. Guess which one was marked with a family feast? Hint. I ate microwave mac and cheese in my room while they went to Olive Garden. But you know what? The scholarship was my golden ticket. Tuition, accommodation, and board are all included, along with a book allowance. I could finally leave that house, where I felt invisible or inconvenient. The day I got my acceptance package, I went to my favorite spot in the local library, a fourth-floor window seat overlooking the park, and cried for an hour. Not sad tears. There were tears of relief. When I told my parents at dinner that I was going to UMich, they were overjoyed. He interrupted. "Michigan. But that's so far. What if Rachel needs you?" She shot back. "I hope you're not expecting us to help with expenses. Rachel's cheerleading competitions are very costly." Rachel's voice is broken. "Oh my God, finally. Can I have your room? I need space for my TikTok videos." The summer before college. I worked double shifts at Carson's Diner to save money. Carol, bless her heart, always gave me extra tips and made sure I got to take home leftover pie at the end of my shift. She also taught me an important skill: how to spot genuine people in a world full of fakes. Baby, she said to me, in diners and in life, the ones making the most noise usually have the least to say. Move-in day at U, Michigan. My parents couldn't attend because, surprise, Rachel had a cheering competition. Aunt Kelly drove me instead, helped me set up my dorm room, and handed me a $500 envelope. Your Grandma Marie wanted you to have this, she stated to me. She's so proud of you. Later I discovered that Grandma had been saving the money from her Social Security payments for months. That first night in my dorm room, I promised myself this: I was going to live such an amazing life that being neglected would be unthinkable. Not for revenge. There's nothing to prove to my family. What about the 8-year-old girl who was taken to Grandma's house for sneezing? College and the start of something new. College passed in a blur of all-nighters, instant ramen, and exquisite liberty. I graduated from the University of Michigan, summa cum laude. Not that my parents noticed. They were too busy helping Rachel transfer to her third college in 2 years. But this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. I landed an entry-level position at Everett and Phillips Auction House in Detroit. I won't use the real name for obvious reasons, but if you're in the industry, you probably know who I'm referring to. An authentic high-end establishment. Many old money customers. That kind of transaction. I started with their estate sales business, which required recording affluent folks' stuff after they died. It wasn't particularly glamorous, but it helped pay the bills. The breakthrough. My first few months were very standard. Logging numerous china sets, categorizing vintage furniture, and so on. Next came the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston was an elderly widow who died without children, leaving behind what everyone imagined was a vast collection of costume jewelry. Rooms are filled with the substance. This is when the hours spent at Grandma Marie's came in handy. I'm browsing this stack of jewelry when something catches my eye. This is an Art Deco brooch. Nothing really impressive, yet something about it felt different. The weight was not appropriate for costume jewelry. The clasping mechanism was far too intricate for a copycat. I believe I spent the entire lunch break that day researching vintage jewelry markers and autographs. I ended up staying late at work to use the company's membership in various antique jewelry databases. The more I looked, the more certain I became that this was not costume jewelry. It was the real deal. Problem was, I was the new girl. Nobody would believe me if I said we had a potential treasure in our hands. So I did as the debate team instructed me. I methodically planned my argument. I spent 2 weeks between lunch breaks and evenings, researching everything I could about Art Deco jewelry authentication. I even spent some of my pathetic funds on an online gemology course. Finally got the courage to approach my supervisor, Mr. Harrison. I delivered the complete presentation, which included comparative photographs, historical material, and the works. The conversation went something like this. My reply was this: Sir, I think we might have something significant in the Kingston collection. Harrison looks up from his phone and adds, Sarah, we've already cataloged those as costume pieces. It's true. I know. But look at these makers' marks. They match perfectly with Cartier's 1925 signatures. Harrison, now paying attention. Where did you learn all of this? I replied, I did some research. Long story short? The costume brooch fetched $47,000 at auction. It turns out that it was part of a restricted collection designed for a European C8 in the 1920s. But here's the kicker. Harrison began to trust me after that. He started sending me more relics to authenticate. My meaningless pleasure of sorting ancient jewels took on new meaning. I dedicated myself to studying as much as I could about vintage jewelry. I took every online course that I could afford. I spent weekends going to estate sales and researching goods. Even started a small notepad to record different authentication procedures. My apartment was like a jewelry scholar's fever dream, with walls covered with printouts of vintage hallmarks and certification criteria. The auction house started receiving results. I was discovering key items that others had overlooked, making links with collectors, and understanding the market. My commission checks grew greater. For the first time in my life, I wasn't only surviving, but actually saving money. Family. Still remarkably uninterested. At Sunday meals, which I still attended like a fool, the conversation went like this. Mom. Sarah's still at that antique shop, right? This is my name, Auction House. And yes. Actually, I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece. Rachel makes an appearance. Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this charm bracelet I bought at the mall. But I didn't care any longer. For once in my life, I had discovered something truly something I excelled at, something unconnected to Rachel's sisterhood or family disappointment. The Rothschild collection. Then came the Rothschild collection. This was about 2 years into my career in the auction business. A huge estate. Old money family. There is a lot of talk in the sector. I was a member of the team that classified their jewelry collection. And that's when I realized it. A reasonably common Art Nouveau piece that everyone else had overlooked. I spent 3 days examining it. I barely slept. It turned out to be a piece from a famous French jeweler's private collection, which was thought to have been lost during World War II. When it sold at auction for $238,000, Harrison summoned me to his office. I thought I was being promoted. Instead, he said something that fundamentally altered the situation. Sarah, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication business. Initially, I dismissed it. Me? Start a business? With what money? However, the idea took root. I started doing small freelance authentication jobs on the side. Word spread that I had an amazing site. Private collectors started contacting us directly. One night, while sitting in my small apartment, surrounded by jewelry instructions and authentication equipment that I had steadily accumulated, I had an insight. This is something I could truly accomplish. I could make anything on my own. So I did what a decent person would do. I took out a hefty loan against my vehicle. I depleted my savings account. I rented a small office space in a less desirable part of town. People thought I was insane. Maybe I was. I renovated a storage room above a Chinese restaurant, which was roughly the size of a college dorm room. The rent was inexpensive since the place usually smelled like Kung Pao chicken, and the Wi-Fi only worked if you sat in the corner by the window. But it was mine. The struggle. The first few months were fascinating. And when I say interesting, I mean terrifying. I would arise at 4 a.m. With cold shivers, I calculated how many months till my funds were out. Loan installments were like a rope around my neck. My office furnishings consisted of, I bought a card table from Goodwill. I genuinely found a chair on the curb. Don't worry, it was well cleaned. However, in the world of high-end jewelry, reputation and connections are critical. And my experience at the auction house gave me both. I started out modestly, doing authentication work for local antique dealers. My costs were lower than those of larger organizations, but my attention to detail was becoming well known. Word spread. 6 months later, a watershed moment happened. A dealer I'd worked with at the auction house inquired about a collection of Victorian-era brooches. Prior to selling, the owner wanted confirmation. It turned out to be a large collection, including items from 3 generations of families. I worked on it for 2 weeks straight, barely sleeping and documenting everything. I found 2 incredibly rare pieces that had been misidentified as later reproductions. The owner was so pleased with my meticulous analysis that she not only paid my fee, but also promised me a 10% commission if the piece sold. Was it a commission? $86,000. More money than I had earned during the previous 2 years combined. Suddenly my phone rang. A lot. Private collectors have heard about my ability to locate missing pieces. Estate lawyers are seeking advice on inherited jewelry. Even my prior auction house started sending me authentication work. I'm quite sure Harrison was surreptitiously spreading the news. Thanks, boss. Scaling up. By year 2, I had hired my first employee, Jenny, a recent gemology graduate who reminded me far too much of myself at that age. She was incredibly clever, yet she was overlooked because she was quiet. She is now my head of authentication, and is really valuable. The firm grew faster than I could have expected. We moved to a proper downtown office. Goodbye Kung Pao chicken odor. I formed a team of specialists. I've developed a reputation for finding misplaced stuff. You wouldn't believe how many significant historical jewelry objects get misidentified as costume jewelry in people's attics. keeping it a secret from my family. However, success brought its own set of challenges. As we grew, it became more difficult to keep it a secret from my family. They still assumed I worked at an antique business. Rachel would make the following snarky remarks during family dinners. Rachel wants to know, "Sarah, I have some old jewelry I was going to donate to Goodwill. Maybe your little shop would want it?" Me, having just authenticated a $1.2 million Fabergé treasure that morning. "Sure, I'll look into it." Mom continued to introduce me to everyone as, "My other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something." Meanwhile, I was quoted in Forbes, thankfully under my company name, and we had just completed our third office. What's so unusual about it? Keeping the secret was almost delightful. Like this private joke with myself. I'd sit at Sunday dinner in my Target bargain attire, actually Chanel, listening to Rachel discuss her entry-level marketing job, while knowing I'd just closed a deal for more than her annual salary. I even started playing small games with myself, like wearing genuine Harry Winston items to family events and seeing whether anyone noticed. They never did. Rachel once spent 20 minutes displaying her pricey $200 Michael Kors watch. I was wearing a classic Patek Philippe, which cost more than her car. Managing growth. However, the true challenge was managing expansion. By year 5, we had opened offices in Detroit, Chicago, and New York. I spent more time on flights than in my own bed. We established a reputation for discretion. It turns out that many wealthy individuals want their diamonds authenticated, without the rest of the world knowing. The money was huge. For example, we needed to hire a big number of financial advisors. Nonetheless, I lived a rather modest lifestyle. I bought a nice, though not flashy house in a desirable neighborhood. I drove a high-end, but not obvious vehicle. The only place I really splurged? My home office. Advanced authentication equipment. The best security system money can buy. A custom-built vault to make Fort Knox jealous. What is with the irony? They thought I was being frugal by helping them. Mom would say things like, "It's so sweet of Sarah to help out. She must be eating nothing but ramen to manage it." Meanwhile, I had just validated a collection, which paid me a commission that exceeded their mortgage. You know what's odd about success? The more you have, the more difficult it is to explain to others who have always considered you inadequate. It's like describing color to someone who's only ever seen black and white. They lacked the crucial context. By this point, my company was doing quite well. We dominated the Midwest's high-end jewelry authentication sector, and our reputation was solid gold. Pun intended. But every Sunday, I'd go to my parents' place for dinner and play Sarah, the modest antique shop worker. The cognitive dissonance was becoming ridiculous. I'd spend my mornings on conference calls with Dubai collectors, my afternoons authenticating million-dollar pieces, and my evenings at my parents' house in carefully chosen ordinary clothes, eating Mom's overcooked pot roast while Rachel dominated the conversation with tales of her latest marketing triumph. Usually something like delivering her boss's coffee without spilling it. A defining moment. One Sunday is very noteworthy in my thoughts. I had just concluded a large deal, authenticating a missing Cartier piece that had been in someone's safe deposit box for 40 years. Was it only the commission? 7 figures. I drove directly from the meeting to my parents' house, still ecstatic with the successful authentication. She responded, "Sarah, honey, is everything okay? Your clothes are looking a bit worn." "Oh, trying to save money," I explained, wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater that I had carefully chosen for its understated appearance. Rachel gave an answer. "Well, if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." "Your father." "Rachel, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you." I nearly choked on my pot roast while trying not to giggle. The anonymous transfers monthly payments to my parents began about this time. Aunt Kelly informed me that they were struggling to pay Rachel's university loans and medical expenditures. Mom casually mentioned that they might need to sell the house. I could not let that happen. Despite everything, it remained my childhood home. So I set up an anonymous monthly transfer of $5,000 to their account. When asked, I stated that I was donating $1,000 while living on rice and beans. They assumed the remainder came from Aunt Kelly or another household. Rachel, of course, took credit for inspiring family members to help. Watching Rachel blow my money. The money was useful, but it had unanticipated repercussions. My parents began to treat me with a peculiar mix of sorrow and patronizing pride. As if I were some wonderful poverty case, giving up all to support my family. Meanwhile, Rachel's spending grew more excessive. She'd come to dinner with new pricey bags, claiming they were outlet finds. They weren't. I can spot a genuine Gucci at 20 paces. She began taking lavish vacations and bragged on Instagram about her privileged life. I am confident she spent my support money on shopping sprees. Nonetheless, I remained mute. The irony was simply fantastic. The MBA drama. Then came the college fund drama. Rachel stated that she intends to return to school for her MBA. Another private university, of course. The golden child deserves nothing less than the very best. Mom contacted me in tears, explaining that they could not afford it. I offer an idea. Maybe Rachel could look at state schools? They have good programs too. My mom. Oh honey, you don't understand. Your sister needs to maintain certain standards. But speaking of assisting, may I raise my monthly payment for a few years? I upped it to $7,000 per month. My accounts remained unaffected. But seeing them laud Rachel for taking initiative with her education, while assuming I was living off ramen to help out, it stung a little. The real kicker. I was presenting a guest seminar at the same business school Rachel wished to attend. My family didn't know that. The dean personally invited me to present a talk on luxury goods authenticity and business growth. I had to make up an excuse for why I couldn't attend Sunday dinner that week. My own achievement began to feel like a separate life. As if I were a corporate superhero with a secret identity. By day, I ran a multi-million-dollar authentication firm. By night, well, on Sunday evenings, I was simply Sarah, the dissatisfied daughter who worked in an antique shop. The breaking point, Thanksgiving. The weight of the untruth was increasing. Rachel made disparaging remarks about my career on several occasions. Every time Mom apologized to her friends for my modest lifestyle. Every time Dad advised that I obtain an actual job. I think I always knew it would end dramatically. I just didn't expect it to implode so dramatically on Thanksgiving. It started 2 weeks before the holiday. Mom called, crying about her back pain. She had been diagnosed with a herniated disc, and the thought of preparing Thanksgiving dinner for 20 people overwhelmed her. Now I'd like to tell you that I offered to help solely out of goodwill, but seriously? I was tired of pretending her dried turkey was tasty. My reply was, why don't I handle the food this year? I can have it catered. She responded, oh honey, we can't afford a caterer. My reply was, don't worry about the cost. I've been saving up. Mom, concerned. You're not taking out a loan, are you? Everything was handled with a high-end catering company that I frequently employ for business occasions. They perform fantastic work, producing food that makes you question why you bothered to prepare it yourself. It cost more than my parents expected me to make in 2 months, but whatever. Thanksgiving morning arrived, and I was feeling very good. I brought my laptop since I needed to monitor a large online auction in Hong Kong. This gorgeous Art Nouveau necklace was for sale, and I had a customer who wanted certification if they won the bid. The meal arrived on time and everything was adequately prepared. Rachel, of course, needed to answer. Rachel asked, store-bought stuffing? Really, Sarah? Mom's is so much better. This comes from the girl who once triggered the smoke alarm while making toast. Mom apologized to everyone for not cooking herself, but it was clear they were enjoying the food. Rachel shut up after tasting the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which, incidentally, cost more per plate than her weekly grocery budget. I stepped away from dinner and dessert to check my laptop. The auction was becoming more exciting, and I needed to be prepared in case my client won. I set up in my old bedroom, which Mom had kept unchanged since high school. In the interim, Rachel's room had gone through 3 makeovers. That's when things went bad. I had left my authentication program running, with multiple tabs open displaying various accounts and current agreements. Rachel entered without knocking, some things never change, and asked to borrow my phone charger. She spotted my laptop screen and realized this was her moment to finally show how pathetic her older sister was. Rachel, smirking. Let's show everyone what Sarah's really been up to. Before I could stop her, she grabbed my laptop and proceeded into the dining room. The big reveal picture this. 20 people, including aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents, stuffed themselves on gourmet turkey and drank expensive wine, which they mistaken for Trader Joe's. Rachel's reaction. Time to see what kind of important work Sarah's doing on Thanksgiving. She flipped the laptop around triumphantly, clearly aiming to embarrass me with whatever little antique transactions she believed I was working on. The room became utterly silent. You could hear the nice clock I bought Mom for Christmas ticking silently. She thought it was a reproduction. My screen showed. Current account balance is $12.4 million. Pending authentication contract, $485,000. Recent transaction, $1.2 million. Hong Kong auction. Company's quarterly profit report, $4.2 million. Rachel's face changed into 5 different expressions in 3 seconds. The final one fell somewhere between shock and nausea. She did stagger somewhat on her feet. Rachel says quietly, "This cannot be right," she asked. "Rachel, honey, what is it?" Rachel's voice cracks. She's rich. Sarah's rich." Chaos ensues. If it was possible, the silence deepened even further. Then Mom began to giggle. Like, truly laughing. She responded with, "Don't be silly. Sarah works at that little antique shop." I stood up slowly, straightening out my basic cashmere sweater, which cost more than their monthly mortgage. Me? Yes. Actually, Mom, I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country. For years. Those antique shop comments? I authenticate pieces worth millions. That little business you never asked about? It has offices in 3 cities. Dad choked on his liquor. Aunt Kelly dropped her fork. Uncle Mike started coughing severely. Then Mom's laughter changed to something else. Her cheeks went red and then purple. She stood so rapidly that her chair fell over. Mom yells, "You have millions, and you let us struggle?" My response, "Struggle? I send you $7,000 every month." She gave an answer. "While sitting on millions? Your sister has student loans." So there it was. Instead say congratulations. Incorrect. Wow, we're so proud. Just outraged because I hadn't given them more money. Rachel started crying. Surprising, I know. Weeping about how she deserved to know, and how I had betrayed the family. Dad joined in. "My grandfather. How could you be so selfish? We're your parents. We raised you." That's when I lost it. Years of indifference. Years of dismissal. Years of being viewed as a family disappointment. Everything gushed out. My answer was this. Raised me. You shipped me off to grandma's every time I sneezed. You missed every achievement, every award, every milestone, because Rachel might feel left out. You never saved a penny for my college but took out loans for her private school. And now, you're mad that I built something for myself? The next 5 minutes were chaos. Mom raged about family obligations. Dad is angry at the ungrateful children. Rachel alternated between sobbing and demanding to know exactly how much money I had. Meanwhile, the elegant catering team attempted to serve dessert while appearing extremely uncomfortable. I grabbed my laptop, took out my Hermes bag, which Mom had earlier praised as a nice replica, and walked out. Behind me I could hear Mom talking about how to spend my money, something about Rachel's MBA and a new car. As I drove home in my reasonable car, a limited edition BMW, my phone began to fill up with texts. The family group chat erupted. Rachel started writing on Facebook about hidden family wealth and selfish siblings. The aftermath. The days following Thanksgiving were like watching a hurricane strike in slow motion. Except that the hurricane represented my family, while the debris represented my sanity. Let's start with SMS messages. Within 1 hour after leaving dinner, my phone had 47 missed calls. More than 200 messages. Mom followed this interesting progression. 7:42 p.m. How dare you walk out on family? 8:15 tonight. We need to talk about this like adults. 9:03 p.m. Your sister deserves a share of your success. 10:30 at night. I've already called a realtor about houses in better neighborhoods. 11:45 in the evening. Why aren't you answering? This is your mother. Meanwhile, Rachel had transformed into a full-fledged social media combatant. Rachel, on the other hand, had completely embraced social networking. She posted a lengthy diatribe on Facebook about how her millionaire sister had been hoarding wealth while watching her beloved family struggle. The commentary section was wild. Distant cousins and former high school classmates, whom I hadn't communicated with in years, developed strong opinions about my moral character. But this is when things became interesting for me. Rachel actually posted, "All those years of me trying to help Sarah's career, giving her advice about moving up from that little antique shop. And she was secretly wealthy." The betrayal hurt so much, I nearly threw my phone across the room. What was the only professional advice she ever provided me? I proposed that I try selling jewelry on Etsy. If you're not familiar with the term, flying monkeys are when toxic family members send others to guilt trip you. Aunt Susan, whom I saw maybe once every 3 years, called to tell me that family is everything. Uncle Bob, who I'm pretty sure still thinks I'm 12, emailed me a long lecture about the importance of sharing wealth. Even my third cousin's wife's sister, how did she get my phone number, felt compelled to share her thoughts on family responsibilities. But the real fun started when they arrived at my workplace. When I arrived on Monday morning, I found Mom, Dad, and Rachel sitting in our welcome area. They told Jenny, my receptionist, that they had an appointment to authenticate services. Rachel held her Michael Kors bag as if it were actually worth something. The conversation went about as well as you would anticipate. "Your mother says, we've discussed it as a family." I responded by asking, "A family discussion? Without the family member you're discussing?" Mom, ignoring me. "And we think it's only fair that you set up trust funds for everyone." Rachel responds, "I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly." Your dad responded, "And your mother and I would like to retire. We're thinking of a beach house in Florida." This is who I am. "Did you miss the part where I've been sending you $7,000 monthly?" Rachel says, "That's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us." You're puzzled. I owe you? For what exactly? The years of being ignored? The missed graduations? The constant comparisons? Mama said, "Don't be dramatic, Sarah. We gave you everything." My reply was, "No. I gave myself everything. And you know what? I'm done." Right there in my office lobby, I took out my phone and canceled the monthly transfers to their account. Mom gasped, as if I had slapped her. Rachel began her phony crying performance but quickly stopped when she realized it wasn't effective. Then everything turned ugly. They refused to leave. I needed to contact security. Seeing my 60-year-old mother being hauled out while ranting about ungrateful children was strange. Jenny asked whether I wanted to press charges. I said no. However, I had their names added to the building's do not admit list. The harassment continued for weeks. New phone numbers, fake email addresses, even attempted to contact me via my company's customer service. Finally, I had to serve a formal legal notice, threatening harassment charges. Mom then played her last card. She called Grandma Marie. But here's the thing about Grandma Marie. She is wiser than all of them together. How did she reply? "Good for Sarah. About time someone in this family succeeded on their own terms." Mom didn't speak to her for 2 months after that. It's been 6 months since Thanksgiving. I moved to a new home with stronger security. I adjusted all of my figures. How about the company? We're doing better than ever. It turns out that my family troubles drew some high-profile clients who appreciated my caution in the situation. Rachel continues to post passive-aggressive updates about toxic wealth and family betrayal. According to what I've heard, she's starting her own jewelry authentication firm. Good luck with that. Mom and Dad stopped trying to contact me when my lawyer sent them an official letter describing how the harassment charges would affect their lives. They are now telling everyone that they never wanted my money anyway, and are praying for my salvation. What is the best part? For the first time in my life, I feel emancipated. No more Sunday dinners filled with subtle insults. I will no longer downplay my accomplishments to protect their feelings. The Rachel Show is no longer financially supported. My therapist says, I have finally established good boundaries. I say, I'm finally living truthfully. So, that's my tale, Reddit. Thank you for letting me share it. Special thanks to the catering company, which sent me a Christmas letter saying the Thanksgiving dinner was the highlight of their year. Edit. Answers to common questions. Yes, I'm still in treatment. No, I don't regret cutting them off. Yes, Grandmother Marie is doing fine. She's coming to visit next month to help me catalog a new collection. One final thing. To Rachel. I know you are probably reading this. What about the Cartier bracelet you wore in your most recent Instagram post? Definitely a fake. Just saying.